Hi, my name is Mrs. Snyder, and today we're going to talk about decomposing fractions. Some terms to know would be the denominator, which is the number below the line in a common fraction. It's also known as the divisor. And then the numerator is the number above the line in a common fraction, showing how many parts indicated by the denominator are taken. So for example, 2 2/3 would be the numerator. And then decompose a fraction. Do you have any idea like what that would be, just off of like guessing?
Decompose means to break down, so
Yeah, to break down the parts in a fraction.
got it.
So today we're gonna go over our I can statement as well. So what you're gonna be able to do after this lesson is that you can decompose a fraction into a sum of fractions with the same denominator in more than one way, recording each decomposition by an equation and modeling. So we have our worksheet. We're just going to go through it together. That way we can kind of get like a handle on it, kind of understand it. So our first one is we're going to decompose 2/3. So again, here's 2/3. This is the numerator is on top and the denominator is on the bottom. A way that I think or kind of remember that as well is that the denominator is D and it equals down. So they're both the D's. So that's how I kind of remember that. So we're going to decompose 2/3. So we're going to break it down. When we're breaking down 2/3, what two fractions could go into 2/3 to kind of break it apart?
1/6.
Nope, we have to keep the same denominator. So like it would be 1/3 plus 1/3 is kind of how we would break it down. So if that makes sense, we have to keep the same denominator and then we break down this numerator.
Got it.
So we can break that in half.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Obviously you can't go any lower. I guess you could put a 0 out of 3, but 0/3. But you want to break it down to where the numerator is at a 1, or I guess you can break it down any way you'd like, to be honest, because it's just a breakdown of it. So the way that we would model this is that we would go ahead, and you can see this on your worksheet as well, and draw our model. So like it said up here with terms to know, denominator is how many pieces of the whole.
All of them.
Yep, so this whole thing right here is 1.
Okay.
It is the whole. You're going to take and you're going to bring, and you're going to put 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. Because if you added all those together, you're going to have 3/3,
1,
which would equal 1.
Yep.
Right. So in this one, we're just going to do the 2/3, and you would just show that you broke that down by 1/3, 1/3.
Got it.
Another way that you can do that, they're showing a model on your worksheet, and you can do this way if you want. I really just kind of want to see the shading in model more than anything, or the tape model is what they call that.
Okay.
You could also, if you wanted to and it made more sense to you, there's 2/3, and then you can show that you're breaking it down and put which fractions you're wanting to break it down right there. So then 1/3 and 1/3. Does that make sense?
The top one makes more sense, but
This one?
I got it. Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say you go with whatever method works for you.
Okay.
And just kind of ignore this bottom one then. So then I'm gonna see if any of these on here. So obviously we're gonna keep the same denominator in them, but let's say we had the denominator of 4, and then pick a number higher than 4 but lower than 10.
3.
Higher than 4 but lower than 10.
6.
Okay. So then right here you can see that that's an improper fraction. So in order to break this down, remember we have to keep the same denominators. What would you break the 6 down into? You can pick anything lower than 6, basically.
A 3.
Okay, so you can do a 3 And then what's another, if you have 3 and you already took that away from the 6?
3.
3? Okay, so you can do 3/4 plus 3/4 equals the 4/6.
Cool.
And so also another way, what were you going to say?
1.75.
You're ahead of yourself. You're getting ahead of it.
I'm new. All right,
Alright,
sorry.
so another way that you can do that, I kind of like to think of it like with the 1 in the numerator, just to break it down that far, because if you do, in my brain, the way that it works, you do 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4, and you're basically going to do that until it equals 6/4.
6. Got it.
Yeah, so then you're going to go right there. Well, I know that in order to make 1, I need 4/4, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can go ahead and I can circle these 4 right here, and that's going to be 4/4 or 1. So if I have that whole, then I can have, what would these equal out to if you added 1/4 and 1/4?
0.5.
Not
2/4. Sorry.
2/4, yeah, I would say not in decimals yet, but 2/4. So you'd have 2/4 plus 1, or how you would write that basically, I should have
1
circled the
1/2.
other way. Yeah, I should have done 1 and 2/4, and if you wanted to actually break that down even
Right.
further, you could do 1 and 1/2. So if
I
you
was
need to
wrong
do
to
that.
begin with. That helped.
Okay.
That was 1.75. That's 1 3/4.
So, yeah. So if you break it down, like I said, if you want to group it, that would work as well there too.
Okay.
Let's do. I guess I should have modeled that one. I'll go ahead and erase this, and I'll model that one so that you can see that 6/4 and kind of like what it looks like as a whole. So there's gonna be. Actually, I'm gonna draw them as 2 separate ones because we're talking about more than one whole, because we just proved that. So I'm going to go ahead and model so that we know that this is 1 and this right here is 1.
Okay.
So then we're going to break our model down into 4ths. You can see that. And then we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to shade in 6 of them. So you can see that. And that's kind of another way that you can see that it is going to be 1 and 2/4 or 1/2.
Okay.
So the model, I want you guys to do that for sure so that you can see it on there as well. You have any questions on that one?
No, that makes sense.
Okay. And then let's go ahead and do on this one, because you're going to have to show which those fractions are.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and do 3/5. That's going to be number C on your worksheet. So how can you break down, or what would it look like for 3/5 if you made 1 the numerator and kept the same denominator? How many of those would we need?
1.75.
Not in decimal, in fraction form.
1 3/4.
How many of, if we were to write them out with 5 plus, and then do the 5s, what would the, and we did the numerators?
1/5.
Right.
Yeah.
So we would need 3 of those.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
There? And then to diagram that, we're going to need to go ahead and break it down. And from our previous lesson, we talked about like shading in the fractions.
Mm-hmm.
So how many of those would we shade in?
3.
Right. And this whole thing equals what?
1.
Right. And then each of these are
1/5.
1/5. Look at you, you're getting it.
Ha! What we out here?
Basically an overall view of how to decompose a fraction. So I want you guys to go ahead and work on this worksheet, and then we will do your unit test on Friday.